Brief obsessions. The obsession hits me without warning. I watch all there is to watch. I read, skim through all there is to read. I know it all. I learn it all. I crave more, and I know nothing. I turn the page and see this is only chapter 1. I barely scratched the surface, but I'm already exhausted, and my obsession deflates slowly, suffocated by smoke without fire, dead flames without ashes. I take a break to breathe in clarity, but I know that any exit I take becomes my next brief obsession. Why do I even question my next move or hope for anything to stay? Welcome to the Memento Mori Lab podcast. I'm Myra, your host and aspiring creative friend. When I look back at my creative journey, ever since I was a kid until now, all I see are my brief obsessions. These obsessions were, for the most part, all followed by complete disinterest and detachment. Here's how it usually goes. Something happens in my brain and all of a sudden I discover this new activity, for example, painting or indoor climbing. So I start painting. I get all the supplies I need and the ones I can afford. I go on YouTube and watch endless hours of YouTube videos, though I have to say I regret never following along with a Bob Ross class. I look for courses but rarely take any. I start free online courses but rarely make it to the end. And I paint 1, 2, 3 random paintings. And in my mind, I'm thinking this is it, I found my calling in life, or whatever you call that feeling, the purpose, passion, career, goal, future, myself. My mind then proceeds to make up all these scenarios of potential future success, incredible success, practically, I have a hard time saying that word, practically impossible, unattainable success. And I keep painting. The paintings look fine. Close friends say good things about them. I guess it's like their job. But my mind starts to go on a downward spiral. A voice in my head keeps telling me this isn't even close to what it should be. If you really want to be successful, you need to be much better. You need to do much more. You're too late. You should have started years ago, and on it goes. I'm sure we all heard these voices before. And then I slowly begin to lose interest. All the things I see on YouTube seem exhausting rather than exciting. The thought of grabbing the canvas, prepping the space, and painting feels like too much effort. I question myself, do I really want to paint? If I wanted to, wouldn't I feel more, excited? And a few weeks in, sometimes months, sometimes days into that new obsession, I quit. Does any of that sound familiar to you at all? I don't know if that behavior is an artist thing or just a human thing. I think human, though it doesn't happen to all humans, does it? Some manage to stick it out and pursue these things. Some really do, quote-unquote, discover themselves, find their purpose or calling, and go for it. Others have their so-called calling found for them, and they seem to accept their fates. Like parents discover these natural talents that their kids have and just nudge them toward it. Some do a bit more than nudge them. I think the percentage of people struggling with these chase of purpose is higher than those that feel purposeful. Maybe most of us have had these brief obsessions that felt like they would last forever but just didn't, and we usually feel inadequate because of it. It seems like if you haven't found a purpose by now being whatever age you are at, that you were too late, that you never will, that maybe you don't have one. An obsession comes along and we cling to it, desperately hoping for it to stay. Maybe we want to fit in. Perhaps we want to know what it feels like to have that passion, even if it's just for a moment. Let's go to another poem. Finite. What if the words don't come? If my mind drifts somewhere else? Maybe tomorrow I'll let go of the pen and my thoughts won't make to paper. Thin paper, see-through paper. So fragile I hesitate to write, afraid of tearing it apart or running out of lines. Sometimes I wish I'd just move on, like I always did, to the next thing. But I keep coming back to blank pages, adding words I can barely spell, drawing shapes with crooked lines, sketching mistakes I barely understand. Finite interests to all but words and wonders. I shouldn't fear the end of this romance, because everything ends at some point. If life isn't forever, why would my obsessions be? The worst part about the end of an obsession is that we feel like a failure. We feel like we did something wrong or there's something wrong with us. It's especially painful if it's public, like if we announce to our friends or family or to strangers on social media and we told them all, this is what I'll do for the rest of my life. Either way, it feels like failing. Failure is terrifying. Maybe because we feel shame about it. Aristotle talks about shame as being a kind of fear that we have in relation to how others see us and how we see ourselves. We are afraid of destroying our reputation or of being seen as damaged. And maybe it's like a tribal fear of being kicked off the group, No one wants to be wrong or quote-unquote make mistakes, especially in front of everyone else. Changing our minds about things is seen as a weakness, when it should be a strength. Sometimes we stick with things, jobs, relationships, activities, just for appearances, even when it doesn't make us happy any longer. A brief obsession becomes a tragedy in our mind's eye, because we feel like we failed in front of the entire world, as if the world is paying any attention at all, when in fact the world does not give a shit. Maybe some people do, briefly give a shit. Some people love you and want what's best for you and they think they know what that is. Some people want to be able to say I told you so, and there are many other variables in there. And then there are the ones that need to feel better about their lives, so it's easier to criticize others than take any action themselves. Or they convince themselves that it's better not to try anything at all. We are all human and we are all flawed. But the truth is, at least the people that quote-unquote fail are trying. If we don't listen to ourselves and explore these curiosities and obsessions, how can we ever find the things we do love, the passions and purposes? People reinvent themselves all the time. We can always change. Changes and death are our two certainties in life. Like we talked about in episode 13, I think. The regret of not trying things will live on with us forever. Not with the other people that sit around and judge us. Nope, we will be the ones feeling that pain. But what happens with these obsessions that the fire goes out so quickly? Let's go to another poem while we think about that. This is it. Suddenly, all I see is this one thing everywhere. All the colors in the world became one. All the possibilities gone. All I can do now is this. And this is what I should have been doing all along. This is it. I finally found it. I found me. Why didn't I start doing this sooner? This will be all of me for the rest of my life. And nothing else, because this is it. Until this isn't it. Equally as sudden, this isn't it at all. Until this was a mistake like all else. Everything else is more interesting than this. Until 1,000 new possibilities sparkle, and I see all the colors I dismissed, until I'm lost yet again. Of course this wasn't it. But wait, maybe that's it. Yes, that's definitely it. Look, I don't know if I have the right answers or solutions, but I have some guesses that I find are true for some of us. When the interest first comes up, everything is great, right? We are beginners, we know nothing, and every little bit of information makes a huge difference. The progress from, let's say, 0 to 10 is fairly quick, so we get excited about this new thing. And then we suffocate it. We start consuming all there is to consume about the thing. We have all the information available in the world, just opening a browser, so we search for everything without having the time to process things and to progress slowly, It's like day 1, you learn how to draw a line. And on day 2, you're trying to do a realistic full figure live drawing, Even if we are cold, too much heat will burn. Even if we are thirsty, too much water can drown us. We drown these interests in so much information and so many expectations. Just so much of everything except time and patience. Our abilities don't have time to catch up to what our mind supposedly knows, and it's one disappointment after the next. Not to mention that we see all these amazing artists doing amazing things and very talented people, which then makes us think like, okay, I'm never gonna get there, so why bother? And the other thing is, when we first start, maybe others around us are encouraging. We get some pats on the back or instant gratification for it. Because, you're just beginning, so whatever you are doing doesn't have to be great or even good. But then the encouragement wears off because it's not a novelty anymore, and people around us do not care as much because they have their own lives and interests. And maybe we feel like if we move on to the next thing, we can get that feeling back. The thing is, external motivations wear thin. And for some people, including me, it's hard to find internal motivation to do things for themselves. I fit in this group of people who can easily be committed to tasks for other people. Like, if I'm accountable to someone else, I'll get it done, regardless of any obstacles. But if it's something for myself, particularly concerning my creativity, I find excuses not to do it. Creating deadlines helps. I think I've talked about this in a couple of other episodes. Making a commitment to ourselves helps. Trying to hold ourselves accountable helps. But it's all very abstract, isn't it? Maybe there are some ways to give these new obsessions a real shot at becoming something more. A passion, a purpose, or a very fun hobby. even if we feel like we can't commit to ourselves. It seems that we need to find the right pace without so much expectation, demand, or pressure. Setting some achievable goals seems like a good idea too. Nothing too crazy. I'm trying to find a balance because if it's too easy, it becomes boring. The tendency is just the same as if it was too hard, quit and move on to the next thing. In the book Grit, written by Angela Duckworth, she talks about this whole finding your passion or purpose thing. When I read it, the thing that stuck with me was that we all have many paths that could be, quote unquote, the one. When an interest comes up, we tend to overdo it with too much too soon. Without enough oxygen, the flames will go out without ever fully burning. She mentions that we put out the fire instead of fanning the flames. Her point is that to find our passion, we need to nurture these interests gently at first, build them up. For someone like me who has had many failed brief obsessions, this might be where I've always gone wrong. Too much, too soon. Some of my brief obsessions include acting, boxing, photography, painting, programming, making t-shirts, playing drums, piano, and I could go on for hours on things I've done and thought of doing and tried to do. What are some of your brief obsessions? Hit me up on Instagram and tell me all about them. And maybe when the next one comes around the corner, let's commit to pacing ourselves a little bit more. The next one might stick. Or not. If it doesn't, that's fine too. Remember, no pressure. I guess because this happened quite a few times, I noticed that lately it became harder for me to trust these interests, to follow my heart, so to speak. And even if I do try it out, I'm always waiting for the moment when I will no longer be interested in it. I'm always dreading that moment and looking over my shoulder, which is not what we want when exploring something new. Maybe part of dealing with these obsessions is trusting in ourselves and enjoying the moment. Savoring the new interest. If it fades away, at least you made the most of it when it was around. Alright, let's end this episode now. Otherwise, I'll probably talk about this for hours and no one wants that. If you liked this episode, don't forget to share it with your friends, particularly those who have started 1,000 different things. They will feel less alone. Thanks for hanging around till the end. See ya!